Hey, everybody, it's Robbie Kelman Baxter coming to you live from the South Shore of Massachusetts, where I can see the ocean from my window. It's an awesome day, and it's a great day to be talking about emerging monetization trends. Today, we're going to be talking about subscriptions, pay as you go, pay per use, bundles, and everything else that's happening in the wild and woolly world of subscriptions. Today, my guest is Amaury de Closset, the CEO and co-founder of Limio. In this discussion, we'll be talking about the emerging and evolving monetization trends in the media industry, covering topics including subscriptions, bundles, consumption-based models, and more. I'm dying to get started. So with that, let's welcome our special guest. Hey, Amaury, how are you?
Hi, Robbie. I'm good. How are you?
Good, thanks. It's great to see you. I've been looking forward to this for a while. Let's just jump in. It seems like most media companies have gone from ads to subscriptions and then back again. They're layering in multiple brands. They've got bundles. They've got add-ons. They got all kinds of bells and whistles on top of their core offerings. What is driving this proliferation of pricing models and bundles?
It's a really good question. I think one of the main driver is no one has found the silver bullet to replace the profitability of the print subscription. You know, back in the 80s, 90s, newspaper were printing money, not paper. And now they have to find a replacement to that. And that's been difficult. It's a difficult journey for a lot of companies. And so they're experimenting with a lot of different things. And some of those monetization experiments fail. Some have been very successful. I think everyone in the media industry talk a lot about the New York Times and their bundling strategy and how successful that's been. But there are others that have been also very successful. For example, The Guardian that has managed to serve ads to a lot of people while also triggering a lot of recurring donations. But for a lot of media companies, it's really hard to find that balance right. And the only real solution is just to keep experimenting and trying a lot of different things. But that in itself brings a lot of challenges, right? It can be a lot of operational overhead to try to do different things and measure them.
Yeah, well, let's you brought up two great examples. New York Times and The Guardian have taken somewhat different strategies around this. Maybe you can walk us through some of the pros and cons of different monetization strategies using these two, well-known organizations as examples.
Yeah, it's a good question. And the New York Times has been very successful with the bundling strategy, but the truth is there's not many other people or media organization that have been successful with that strategy. I think we see a lot of media company doing a skinny digital product, a premium digital product. And I think with premium and AI, there's a lot more talking about how this can drive the value up of a digital product by adding AI features. But the truth is, it's still hard for consumer to necessarily understand the difference between those tiers. At the end of the day, they're thinking, "I just want to read the content." I think what the New York Times has been quite successful is, well, obviously they're a newspaper. They have those apps around cooking and sports and game that have made them a bit of a more of an entertainment company. And that's not going to be for every media company, right? I mean, a lot of media company are focused on their journalism, and this sits really outside of their DNA. Um, so I think it's a hard strategy to copy, and well, I do think it makes sense for media companies to develop new products and put them out there. And I think The Guardian, to take also their example, they have this Feast app now that is a bit similar to the cooking app of the New York Times. It will be difficult for every company to pull that off. And I think the way to, if you can't really become a multi-product company, I think the next best thing is probably to try to have those tiers within your digital offering that provides more value by giving more features. But even then, there's still a lot of discussion about what does that exactly look like. Do you allow some people to comment on articles and not on others? Is that a premium feature, or Do you do Gen AI summary of an article, and is that a premium feature? Do you allow recaps of text to voice recap of an article, maybe in different languages? Are those all premium features that people are willing to pay for? It's unclear at this point, but I think you do have to experiment in order to see what's going to work for your audience, because media is a very national. I mean, some brands are international, The Economist, the Financial Times, but a lot of brands play in one market, their home market, and it's quite hard to transpose different attitude. In Italy, for example, there's not really a tradition of the print subscription, and people are used to very low price point, and they're not really used to paying for news. In the Nordics, in Europe, people are very willing to pay for news. I think something like 35% of the population pay for news, which is the highest in the world. And those different monetization model, they're not going to resonate with everyone. There are some people who are going to think it's nearly my civic duty to pay for news, and so I'm willing to pay for news and see ads. And there's other people that are going to think it should be free, and okay, I can see an ad, but I'm not going to want to pay for anything except if it's extremely compelling to my passion or my interests. So you have to experiment with these things and see what resonates with your local market.
Yeah, so it's very challenging because you've brought up a lot of variables, right? You've brought up it depends what region you're in and what their preferred or most familiar business model is. Are they used to paying at a newsstand? Are they used to having a subscription delivered to their home? What kind of price point are they used to paying? And do they expect to be paying for it, or do they expect the government to be picking up most of the tab? And then you talked about what kind of content you have. Are you going to lean into your journalistic backbone, your history, or are you going to expand into, what you described, I think rightly so, as entertainment, right? I don't play Wordle every morning for the news value, right? So these are some of the questions I think that media organizations need to ask themselves, right? What are we? What are people expecting from us? Where is our value? And then, as you pointed out, they have to experiment. And I know Limio gives them, the company that you run gives them a lot of tools and features to do those experiments. But even before they start, flipping switches, they do have to have hypotheses. They do have to have ideas about, why are we charging for this feature, giving this other feature away? What should be free? What should be paid? What should be pay as you go? Does this bundle make sense? Just because we happen to own these different brands, these different titles, do they all fit together? Where do you start? If an organization says, we only have one offering, one price now, and we feel like we're leaving money on the table, Amaury, where would we start?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was at the International News Media Association World Congress last week, and one thing that really struck me with media companies is they are very hypothesis driven. They say, we think that, and now we're going to validate it in an experiment. And I think that's a very good way to approach it. And interestingly, we've really seen both ends, where people say, well, we want to get people to our journalism, and we want them to have more brand awareness. And so we're going to have an entry tier product. And so, for example, one of our customers, The Economist, and they've had this strategy of launching Espresso, which is an app that gives you a digest of the news, and to have paid podcasts. They have amazing podcasts, which listen very early mornings while watching my 5 years old waking up too early. And they now are paid, some of them behind a paywall, and that's to grow the awareness of their brand, reach out to younger demographic, which is a very important theme for newspaper. And so there it's that skinny digital, like what are the the things you're willing to have a lower price point that are still very interesting and that people will pay for, but that gives you that much bigger market, potential market. Um, on the other end, there's the premium strategy. Is what can you do for your most loyal reader so that you can drive up the value of each individual reader. And there's a lot of different strategy. I think events has been quite powerful. So the Financial Times run events for their subscriber. We've helped, for example, the Globe and Mail in Canada to sell courses to their subscribers, and these are things that are highly valued by your most loyal core, which is the demographic that you should be able to drive up the value of your subscription, not just by saying, well, you get the same thing but you pay more at each renewal, but by saying, look, we have this premium tier that's really for most loyal reader, and have things that are unique and valued there. But again, to know what those things are that your customer value, I think with that one it's easier. You can talk to your most loyal, engaged readers, which you usually have the data from the content consumption. But the other one, the skinny digital, it can be hard because we're trying to get people who are currently not necessarily considering us, not looking at us, to now engage with our brand, and there'll be more of a marketing effort with top of the funnel advertising and trying to get people in the door, and that's where pricing comes in, right? Free trial, highly discounted trial, those are dangerous. There's risk with those strategies, but they give you a chance to sell, right? They give you a chance to show those products to those people, get them to use it, and give you the feedback. So that's what we would recommend typically.
Yeah, no, it's helpful. And so, the skinny bundle, and certainly the economist's approach of, pretty much putting everything of value behind a paywall. I personally feel like that's a sign of great confidence in your content and in your understanding of who your ideal member is, and what your forever promise is to them, because you say, look, we're going to give you content worth paying for, and we're going to make you pay for it. Taking that path, you have to have a great level of understanding of who your audience is, and confidence that your content is worth paying for. In contrast, advertising is eyeballs. That's content worth looking at, which is different, right? I might look at the Royals all day long. I'm reading the Spare right now, and I just watched Scoop, so I'm very much in the Royals space right now. I was also in London last week when the INMA conference was going on, and trying to get in the vibe. But there's content that you pay for: in-depth research, analytics, breaking news if it's something really important. But a lot of content isn't content that consumers and even businesses are willing to pay for. So I think your point about the skinny bundle is, it's okay if it's skinny, if it's exactly what someone needs and is willing to pay for. But just because it's skinny does not mean someone's going to buy it. And then your second one, which is understand your best audience and give them more of what they want. Give them a deeper, better experience. Expand the way you package the value. So, you're used to getting a news paper or digital news site, but now we're going to give you courses. We're going to give you opportunities to interact with people like you and our journalists in person, expanding the way you deliver on that same promise. That's another place to experiment. And then you had mentioned earlier the pay as you go. So saying, okay, if there are people that love us but find what we're offering too expensive, too big, there might be a cheaper point of entry, a way to onboard them, a way to, as you said, give them a taste, so that you as an organization have a chance to sell to them with a discounted offering or a free offering. But as you pointed out, there's always a risk that you are giving away too much and educating your consumer to expect a lower price. So so there's all of that. What, there are risks to having multiple strategies, and I want to ask you about that. But before I do, I want to say hello to people who are just joining us. This is a live session. Some of you will be able to watch it later. It will be recorded, and it will be available through LinkedIn in the recorded form. But for those of you who are here right now, welcome. Please introduce yourself in the chat. Please feel free to clap if one of us says something worth clapping for, or laugh if we say something worth laughing at. And we'll do our best to respond to your questions and comments since you're here live with us right now. So anyway, I wanted to get back to that question of the experimentation, the hypotheses, and how to set those up. Which first, and then how do you mitigate risk even as you're experimenting?
Yeah, there's always an element of risk, right? When you try a new business model, everyone says, will this cannibalize your or existing business? Will this impact retention? And so there are times where you can do things in a controlled way. You can say, okay, well, we'll A/B test this, or we'll do this in one specific geography. But the problem with the news organization is quite highly visible what you do, and journalists will report on what other journalists are doing. And so it is hard. And that's why I think there's a bit of risk aversion to trying things, and being quite careful about introducing a new business model, because it's not that easy to do it in a small and controlled way. You sometimes just have to put it out there. And certainly, for example, one that comes to mind, one experiment that a lot of media company talk to us about, is the family plan, and everyone asking, should we do a family plan? Spotify has a family plan, Netflix has a family plan. Sounds like a good opportunity, but then when you talk more and more and more about it, a lot of people start being worried about cannibalization of their current subscriber base, and will they actually reduce their total revenue by giving too much access to a lot of people? So it's a hard one, and I don't know if there's a silver bullet. For sure, if you can do things if you're lucky to sell in different countries, you can try to start somewhere with and I think that's what Spotify did. They didn't have the family plan or the dual plan everywhere. They tried it in specific geographies and then said, this is great, this works, let's roll it out. But media company being often national brand, it can be difficult to try things in a small way. So unfortunately on that one, I don't necessarily have an answer beside, do your customer research, try to do the math up front of what you're expecting, and then be ready to adapt quickly. I think that's where the tooling like Limio matters. Is you need to be able to launch quickly, but even more important is you need to be able to react quickly after the launch to what is happening. And so I think that's the reality of it, is you need some tooling to be quick and reactive to what's happening, but it is hard to play it safe in a way.
Yeah. So if I hear you, it's try to do it in a discreet way. Pay really good attention to what's happening right away, which requires you said good tooling. It requires a dashboard so you can see what's happening. And I would add, you need to have a high hypothesis of what's going to happen, and maybe to have pre-decided if things go really badly or really well, this is the metric where we're going to shut something down or do something. Because I see a lot of times they're not really prepared for what happens, and everybody is, what do we do? It's not really working, or it's working a little bit, or and so what is your thought about that in terms of what kind of preparation to do before you dive in and, let's say, make a family plan available in New Zealand only?
Yeah, it's a good point. You do need to go in thinking, what does good look like, right? What does success look like? And if you don't meet that bar, what are you ready to do? Would you just pull the product from the market? The difficulty with subscription is, people have bought this subscription. It's on an ongoing basis on auto renew. So they're often expecting that they will be able to keep that subscription, and sunsetting sunsetting a product that might be very popular with a small base can be a bit of a nightmare from a reputation perspective. So I do think, defining what good looks like ahead of time is very important. And what is your plan B and your plan C if you don't hit those metrics? But yeah, and then you need the tooling to measure those. But that's what I would suggest to do.
Yeah, excellent. I want to say hello. Sam joining from Nigeria. Hello. Sakina in Toronto. This is such a nice international group. And then Zoltan coming in from Budapest. Welcome, everybody. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat and we'll do our best to get them answered. I wanted to know, what is the rationale for having multiple options? There is something, I spent a lot of time, very long time ago at Netflix, where they had one offer, right? 3 DVDs out at a time for this price. And there were a few people that did the 1 DVD out at a time. And I think for a brief period, they had 8 out at a time, which almost nobody did. But the 90-something% of people were all doing the exact same subscription. So they said it was much cleaner, much easier to understand what was going on, much easier to know who their ideal member was, much easier to evaluate an offer. What is the upside of having lots of offers? What has your experience been with organizations who go from having, like you said, that one subscription to introducing not only other subscriptions but other ways to buy?
Yeah, no, 100% agree. It is much simpler to have one thing, right? And it aligns the company it's just everyone can wrap their head around, we're doing this one thing and this is our sole purpose. But I think the problem is obviously there's a lot more competition in the subscription world, in media, in entertainment, in software, in retail, in every industry where subscription is present. There is a lot more competition. It's quite a mature business models. And I think where a lot of companies are getting to is if you just have one product and you go to the marketing team, well, all they can do really is let's discount the product. We'll run flash sales, Black Friday. That's their only tool and only lever. At renewal, we'll give a discount. They don't really have anything they can play with. And I think with a multi-product strategy, you start saying, okay, well, this doesn't work for you, but look, we've got this other product that you might be interested in and it's cheaper. So why don't you move over to that product or to that tier? So it gives a bit of optionality to acquisition and retention marketers and these subscription companies, that they start having more things that they can keep a subscriber engaged with a brand. But I think the real trade-off is exactly what you say at the beginning. It is operationally a lot more complex, managing all those product switches and managing all the different cancellation experience for those flow and how product and promotions interact with each other. And that's just say in one country, one currency. But if you're global, then you're managing that in 200 different countries, running promotions across different products. It becomes operationally a lot more complex to manage. But I think it's the direction of travel, right? Even Netflix now, they have the ad tier, and there's the 4K tier, and there's all these different tiers that are existing. And I think it just gives more it allows you to tap a wider market, and it gives marketing more flexibility to commercialize your brand, basically.
Yeah, no, great points. I'm going to bring in John Clem here. He's asking a friend of ours. Hi, what are the opportunities for group and enterprise subscriptions? I know a lot of newspapers and especially in the business world, the B2B financially oriented publications are now really going deep into enterprise accounts where you might have an investment bank where everybody at the bank has access to The Economist, including to their data products, their events, all built in. Some of them are charging, you have 10,000 employees, you pay X per year per employee. Others are saying you only pay for what people use. Others have other models. What are you seeing? And what did you see at INMA last week in terms of opportunities for group and enterprise subscriptions? And thanks for the question, John.
Thanks, John. Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, media, even brands that we think as B2C, have always had a B2B businesses. Some, like the Financial Times, is more than 50% of their sales is B2B. But even a publication like The Economist will sell to really large organization, and so that's always been there. And it's been quite sales led, typically, with as you said, a lot of tiered pricing, pay as you go, promotions, and this is here to stay. What I think is quite exciting, actually, for media company is to bridge a bit the divide between we sell online or business to consumer subscription, and then we have those sales team going out and selling to really large organizations. There is something in the middle where there are a lot of SMEs and SMBs who want their employees to educate themselves on certain topic because say they're an SME that sells to media organizations, so they want to read a publication that talks about the media industry. Making those sales easier is actually a good strategy. We've seen software companies with Zoom, and they've all made those purchases more frictionless. That can all happen online. Even if you're buying for 100 people, you can do it all online. There's no reason why media companies can't help their customer to self-serve a B2B subscription. I think that's probably one of the most exciting, is actually getting those SMEs to engage more with the brand, because the very large companies, it's quite sales intensive. It's been done before, and I'm sure there's opportunities there. But it's more the long tail that I think hasn't really been captured, and have some willingness to pay. It's not going to be for everybody, but myself as a company owner, I don't mind providing subscription to employees on relevant topic to our business. So I think that's probably an untapped opportunity for group subscriptions.
Yeah, I think that's, it's a great question, and it's a great point about the SMEs, and also your point about this is not that different than what software as a service companies have been doing around what they call product-led growth, where instead of being
Exactly.
sales-led growth, where someone goes out and you're familiar with it because you have a SaaS company that does, it understands what the value of product-led growth. And I think you're right. It's the same thing for media companies, to make it easy for the buyer to buy, even in cases where, there isn't a person calling on you, especially for these brands that people are already familiar with and they know if they want them. Let me ask another quick question from our audience. Sakina asks about ad-free as a low-level entry point. Like you get what you get, but no ads. Is this a good option for a company to start their subscription with? And I'm going to expand that to the whole world of like introductory offers. So how do you bring someone into subscription if they haven't been involved with subscriptions before?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and I think we were joking about this, Robbie, is that I'm not an advertising person, right? I think if you're in subscription, historically, you were anti-advertising. You said that's the other. Go talk to the ad man. They will. There's a very different world. There's agencies. It's programmatic. It's very complicated. Everyone talks about servers. It's just a different world, and I do think that's changing. There is those hybrid model where you sell it, you have a bit of adverts, but you have a subscription. I think they're probably quite operationally quite complex because you're bringing two business model within one product. And I personally, I will say, I don't know how they work from a product perspective. How do you track those ads? How do you serve them? And I suspect it's then it's got to be there's got to be some operational complexity there. But I think the I guess where the question is going is you're going to have to get people into your brand, right? So it's going to be a free trial, it's going to be a highly discounted trial, or it's going to be a trial that is funded by another way, such as an advert, some adverts within the plan. And I think you have to have those, right? I mean, how are you going to get people to engage with your product, except if, you're Chat GPT and there's, such a buzz around what you do and it's the next revolution. Most people, they'll see an advert, they'll want to try it, and then from there they might stick around, and that's the real work. But you need something to get them in. I mean, by all means, if you can get them to pay and also to see advert, that's probably the best of both worlds from a monetization perspective, but it's not going to be suitable for everyone. I mean, I think for media companies, there's a big backlash when they say you have to pay a subscription and you will still see some advert. I can't remember which papers tried to do that, but I do remember there was quite some backlash online on doing that, because it's just once people subscribe, they do see themselves as committing to the brand. Obviously these things are evolving, right? I mean, seeing what Amazon and Netflix and Spotify are doing, introducing ads into subscription tiers, then the consumer might be more tolerant in the future of paying and still having some ads.
Yeah, the ads plus subscription is a really interesting question. I think you can have free content with ads. We've seen, Hulu has been pretty successful at incorporating ads from the get-go. More recently, this is on the streaming content side, but I do think it's instructive for other types of media. Very close, to the same kind of period of time, Amazon and Netflix both announced that they were going to blend ads and subscriptions. Amazon said, if you don't want the ads, pay more. And Netflix said, if you're willing to see ads, you can pay less. And then they eventually raised their price also. But I think part of it is in the positioning. And part of it is that you have to, I feel like you have to have a model around your content that supports the business model that you choose. So advertising, again, is great for volume. It's low risk for people because it's not expensive. You're paying with your eyeballs. But you don't really know which content they'd pay for, whereas the subscription tells you right away what people are valuing. And so, I wasn't like you, I was a never ads person. And my first real, client as a consultant in subscriptions was Netflix, right? And they were so critical of ads. Now they're coming around, and you could say, oh, they're hypocrites and they're making a money grab. But I would say, number one, everybody in the world pretty much knows what Netflix is now. They know what a Netflix subscription is. And people are doing this, serial monogamy, right? They're canceling, going from one place to another, coming back later. Ads are a way to kind of, dropping down a level is a way to keep people from canceling when they are annoyed about the price. If you're reading the paper every day, you might be willing to pay for no ads, but if you're less engaged, it's okay. I do want to ask about deep discounts for trial, because that is a big thing in the world of news, and not really anywhere else, honestly. It's a news thing. What is going on there, and why are they doing it and nobody else is doing it? And do you think it's a good strategy for building long-term relationships?
Yeah, it's a great question, because, when I buy software, if I'm lucky, if I get a 10% discount, right? And then when you look at a news brand, you might have things, it's $1 for 3 months, or sometime even now a year, or there's really 80-90% discount that are available for most media publications. And I mean, I think the current thinking for digital subscription in media is let's get people in, and then let's try to get them to stick around. I think for most newspaper, it takes about a year to build up that loyalty to a brand. But they do think that once you've hit that, you will stay forever. Basically, you will always have that affinity with the brand. So if you read the New York Times or the Economist for a year, you're likely to always try to get your news from those sources. And so I guess it's a number game. Get them in, get them to consume the content, engage them as much as possible during that first year, and then they will be willing to pay for the full value of a subscription. But I agree, it's a dangerous game, and a bit of a race to the bottom between different brands. But this is the current status, and it's very rare to see a media brand that's holding their price, because it happens a lot to a customer. They say, oh, this other publication in our market, they're doing this discount at €1 per month for your first year, and we need to match that, because else we're not going to get any subscriber this month. And so there's a lot of competitive dynamic, and I guess with Netflix, for example, if you're watching a Netflix production, you have to watch it on Netflix. There's not really another way of watching it. I mean, not a legal way anyway. But with news, you can get it from other sources, right? You can go, if they're going to be different, inclinations and things like that. But if you could read on news, a certain news item that's happening on USA Today or the New York Times, on the Seattle Times, you can go, the Washington Post, you can go there and read about what's happening in the world. And so they suffer from a lot of competitive pressure. And so if it's much cheaper somewhere else, well, people will go there. So I think it's both the competitive dynamic and also the habit forming that are driving those really cheap trial, trying to get you in as much as possible. And I think also on the media, they do have a lot of they because advertising is suffering, they want to know more about their readers, and so they're trying to incentivize registering. And also those deep discount, they do get value from the get-go by knowing who you are, because then when they try to give you advert, they have a lot more data, which is valuable to advertiser. So there's a couple of thoughts there in that I think is driving a bit those very steep discount, but it is a dangerous road, and because it's quite hard if you start at $1 a month and then you get at renewal you're at $30 a month. A lot of people are not going to stick around for that. So yeah, it's a difficult one.
Yeah, it can be jarring, I think, to get that big price increase. I know, even just for me personally, I've been studying for subscriptions for 20 plus years, but even for me, I signed up for some news service for the equivalent of €1 for 6 months, and then the price goes up, like 100-fold, and you're thinking, wait, what just happened here? And in the United States, the FTC is coming down pretty hard on these, really deep discounted offers, and on, this, they call it tricking and trapping consumers. And then, of course, the dreaded hiding of the cancel button, right? You can sign up in one click, but God forbid you want to cancel, you have to call them, on a Tuesday between 2 and 3 p.m. and know the secret password. We do have to, you talked about this long-term relationship, you talked about habit formation. A lot of that, I think, comes from having a trusted relationship.
Yeah. No, I think, I mean, it's hard for brands to manage those new cancellation and auto renewal law, and it comes at a time where a lot of those publishers are suffering. But at the end of the day, you have to do what's right for the consumer, and if you make it easy for them to buy, they should have the ability to cancel. And I think it's also healthy for the business, where a lot of people like subscription for the predictability of the revenue, right? And with allowing easy cancellation, you're losing that. You become more transactional. People come in, they come out. But I think the only way forward is to embrace that and make it as easy to come back than it was to leave. And actually, they're more likely to come back because they thought it wasn't that hard to leave. And you got a chance to pitch this customer. They got some use of your product. They might have liked it. Just some circumstances, it's too expensive. you can re-engage them maybe this time with a 50% discount, something that's less steep, but that gives them the value and they're ready to pay for. And you get to live another day to carry on this cycle. But I think it's the right direction of travel, and it's happening everywhere. I mean, some countries are enforcing it in quite a strict way, like in Germany. And I think some countries like the US are enforcing it, but also giving a bit of leeway to regain subscriber and defining the cancellation experience to be a bit more flexible, which I think is necessary, because you can make it easier, but you can still try to collect, well, why are you canceling? Could we give you an offer? Could we give you this tier? Can we help with some technical issues? And I think that's a more healthy way of for subscription business to manage their subscriber.
Yeah, I like that. You can have lots of techniques for saving a relationship or for even intervening earlier on, offering them other payment options, offering them, other features, offering to understand what the problem was and see if you can compensate them if the fault is yours. Those are all great things that you should be able to do as a
Yeah.
subscription vendor. Um, we're kind of coming up on the end of our time, and I have a lot more questions for you, to be totally honest. But I would love for you to share a little bit about how people can reach you, and maybe some of the resources and assets that you can share with our audience if they are looking to explore more creative opportunities for monetizing the content and value that they've invested so much in creating.
Yeah, thanks, Robbie, for that. So you can reach out to us on limio.com or at hello@limio.com. Our goal is to help publishers to and also more subscription companies in general to sell their subscription as flexibly as they want. So be able to experiment with different pricing strategy, different checkout, different purchasing funnels. And then it's not all about acquisition, as we talk. Then be able to have a self-service experience that retains people with experiments around, well, what is the best cancellation experience? And supporting also product switches. We talked about multi-product strategy, allowing, okay, if you want to sell a skinny digital, a premium digital, a totally different product, make that as easy as possible, and then have the different paths, upgrade, downgrade path that people want to do. So that's what we're doing. We want to take care of the commercial aspects so that newspaper and subscription company can focus on their product, which is their core business and what they're great at. And we want to we want to help them provide the best customer experience possible for the commerce part of subscriptions. So that's what we do, and it's exciting challenges, and very different industries. But at the end of the day, it's quite fun to work on the customer experience, which is my passion from day one, and making that as good as possible.
Yeah. So I asked my assistant Nat to put a link to Limio into the chat. We're going to wrap up. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. If you want to clap for Amaury, please join me with your little button, because he really provided a tremendous amount of practical ideas, examples, insights. It was really a joy to talk to you today. So thank you very much. I'm going to wrap
Same
it up,
here.
and for more talk on subscriptions, please follow us both here on LinkedIn. I post every day. You post quite a bit as well. Content that is hopefully valuable for organizations that are trying to build a forever transaction with the people they serve. Thanks very much, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.